Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to see your bright and shining faces this morning all around America as we celebrate the Sunday before Thanksgiving and nearing the end of our church's liturgical calendar. We just listened to the parable of the talents, an important one that Jesus uses to tell people about not only proper stewardship of their money, but about the broadness and the importance of the kingdom of heaven. And so as we think about the parable of the talents this morning and about this lesson we heard about from the Old Testament about Deborah, who was the judge of Israel at the time that she lived, it's important to try and think about what all this means for us for Thanksgiving of 2023. So I want to start off by showing you something from my walk this morning. I haven't been able to work anything in from the walk in some time, but given our daughter's presence, which we are very thankful for, home from college for the Thanksgiving holiday, I wanted to feature the walk this morning as we get started. So I think part of the Thanksgiving lesson that we hear in this parable of the talents is to appreciate what God has given us. And so it's a fair question to ask, what has God given us? The answer is everything, every single thing that exists here on earth, up in heaven and in the universe, was the creation of the Almighty Father. And so when we start kind of listing out our things for Thanksgiving, which we do in our family every year, we go around the table and say, well, what are you thankful for this year? I have to say, even in my own mind, I rarely start with everything. But it's a great place to start as you think about getting into something particular that you're thankful for this year. Start with the broadness of God's love and mercy and his creation. On my walk this morning, I got a little lesson in that. You see, there are a couple of birds fluttering around this bush that I was walking next to, and all of a sudden I realized as they're kind of flying here and there and doing their bird things, squawking here and there, what was causing them to be so flustered and making a fuss was compared to them, giant hawk. Now this is a junior-sized hawk compared to the other ones that I've seen around our neighborhood, but nonetheless, considerably, let's just say 5 or 6 times bigger than these other birds. And so as the hawk is trying to clear them out of this bush, there was a lot of just commotion here on this otherwise peaceful Sunday morning. I want to show you all a picture of this and take advantage of our format here at Online Home Church, just so you can get the visual with me. All right, here is the picture of the hawk. Now I'm going to zoom in so everybody can see it, but I'm just walking through our neighborhood. There's this kind of commotion in the bushes, and it turns out the commotion was all for one thing. So this hawk, can you all see him here in the middle?
Yeah.
So this hawk could get a little sunshine. All of that kind of clearing out the smaller birds from the bushes below was to get to this branch, only about 10, 12 feet above the ground. But you notice the right side of the hawk is perfectly lit in the sunshine. It seems that all that hawk wanted was a little sunshine on a quiet Sunday morning. Isn't that something?
Quite. Excellent.
That's one of the reasons that I wanted to show you all this, not just to take advantage of our format here at Online Home Church, because that happened about 45 minutes or an hour ago, but just to kind of appreciate the simplicity of God's creation and how thankful we should be, not just for every little thing, but everything. When you have to, when you have to move things aside, when you have to take time to get things arranged, when you have to take time to take the time just to sit on a branch and enjoy the sunshine at 7:30 in the morning, that's worth being thankful for. And I'm sure that hawk, maybe not the little birds that got run off, but they seemed to be okay at the end of the commotion. But that hawk was very thankful simply for the brightness of the sunshine on a Sunday morning. So as you sit down at the Thanksgiving table this week, I hope that you'll start with those basic kind of things. What do we have? We have the sun and a blue sky and trees and birds to look at. And one of the key concepts that Jesus always tells us in this notion of how we translate the thankfulness that we have for God's creation into a discussion of the kingdom of heaven is that he tells us not to worry. And so whatever's on your mind this Thanksgiving, whether it's something good and being thankful or something bad because you've got a concern about your health, you're worried about those who are no longer at the Thanksgiving table with you, or those that can't make it for one reason or another, Jesus tells us, don't worry. No one ever added a single moment to their lives through worry. Look at the birds of the field. or the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. God created them and he takes care of them. If he takes care of them, just like those birds and that hawk this morning, how much more will he take care of you? It seems to me that's a great place to start in our discussion of the holiday of Thanksgiving this morning and this really important parable of the talents. You see, in Jesus' time, as he's telling us this story, things are much different. We have this story from the Old Testament lesson about Deborah, who was the judge of Israel. She sat under, how great is that, by the way? You would talk about making a lasting impression in your country. Where does Deborah sit and judge the people of Israel? She sits under Deborah's tree. Where else would she sit? Right? The tree was so important as a place for her to judge the people that they named it after her. So, but that was a much different time. Jesus is now in a time where there's this temple culture, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the high priest run everything in Jerusalem. And over the top of all of this is the fist of the Roman Empire. And so when he's talking to folks about how they need to appreciate the kingdom of heaven and using this parable involving the talents, there's a lot going on. Financially and economically, there's a lot going on politically, and there's a lot, obviously, that's going on with people being in often desperate situations of poverty. And sometimes, as is the case in this parable, slavery as a result of their debts that Jesus has to help them interpret. So the biggest thing, let's start off as we talk about the parable of the talents this morning. The first thing is, what is a talent? For us, we think of a talent as some kind of gift, some ability to be able to perform or to entertain others. Here, the talent is a measure. It's a kind of a currency. It's a way that we describe basically an amount of money. So when Jesus is talking about 5 talents or 2 talents or 1, it basically just envision a $20 bill or a gold coin. A talent is just a unit of measurement of currency at the time. The first question then is, as we talk about this parable, why is Jesus telling about the kingdom of heaven and using financial terms in the first place? It's a fair question. It seems to me that there are lots of different ways Jesus could have told this story. As we look at the parable of the talents and we see that the master is giving to his servants these different amounts, and then the story tells us goes away for a long period of time. Who knows how long that was? Could have been weeks, months, could have been years. And so why didn't we hear a story about Jesus saying, here's 5 figs, here's 2 figs, here's 1 fig, or 5 sheep, or 5 seeds for a mustard tree, or even 5 grains of wheat. All of these things could have been used for some period of time while the master was gone. We don't know how long this master was gone, but they could have easily been turned into 5 fig trees, or 5 more sheep, or 5 mustard bushes, and so on. I think the reason that Jesus used talents is that everybody at that time, everybody in Deborah's time, everybody 2,000 years later can appreciate the financial aspect of investing and growing money. Everybody appreciates the fact that if you have any kind of economic system in place, like Jesus did, and the very first servant went out and took his 5 talents and traded with others to then turn them into 5 more, you can appreciate the fact that in any system, any economic system that involves capitalism, there's going to be the opportunity to take money and grow it into more. The servant who had the 2 talents did the same thing, went out and traded just like the one who had more and turned it into 2 more talents. And so these folks in modern terms are getting 100% return on their investment. That's terrific. And Jesus is telling us by that, hey, you know what? You need to do the same thing. Because the person who went out, the last servant who took the 1 talent and was afraid of the master and went and buried it in a hole in the ground and got nothing, was scolded, wasn't he? At the end of the story, we hear this person who had the 1 talent went back to his master and said, hey, you know what? I was afraid of you. And so I didn't want to lose this. I didn't want to take the risk of this investment. I just buried it in the ground. Here you go. Here is what is yours. I think that's one of the key phrases of the whole story, because it was presumptuous of this servant to not take any risk, and then presumptuous of this servant to then say, hey, you know what? Here's what you had back. Because the key to the story is it's all belongs to the master. It all is his creation. The question is, what do we do with it? Right? There's a lot going on in this parable. And so as we think about how each of these folks took the amount, what they were given from the Lord and what they did with it, We need to be thinking not just in financial terms, but in terms of the kingdom of heaven. That's really what this story is about. Because you see at the end where we kind of run out of gas on this financial analogy, where we run out of gas and realize, hey, you know what, wait a second. Jesus isn't telling us to go invest and get 100% return on our investment. He's telling us to take care and enjoy and appreciate and grow the love of God in the kingdom of heaven. It's not about money at all. Because there at the end of the story, he says, and Matthew, by the way, who wrote this story in his gospel, says it 12 chapters earlier in, I want to say in the 12th chapter of Matthew, almost word for word. For to whom much is given, much will be expected, right? Whoever is given more, more will be given. And we see that for each of these servants who invested and got 5 more, invested and got 2 more. The Lord says, that's a great job. You were good and trustworthy. I'm going to give you even more responsibility. For to whom much is given, more will be given. But to whom nothing was given, everything will be taken away. That for years has troubled many pastors and Christians because it sounds like, wait a second, Jesus is telling us that the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to be even more destitute. That's where the financial analogy in this parable just runs out of gas. And we realize, oh, that's right. He's not talking about money at all. He's talking about the broadness of the kingdom of heaven and the broadness of God's love. When that message falls on deaf ears and people don't understand that Jesus is talking about taking time to say thank you. Thank you for the gift that we have of creation. Thank you for the gift of the things that we have, like the 5 talents. Thank you for the broadness of God's mercy and the broadness of God's love. Then we go into the kingdom of heaven, just like we heard about in our hymn this morning. We gather together to ask the Lord's blessing, and we all go into the kingdom of heaven. But for those whom it falls on deaf ears, they have nothing and they will get nothing. So to me, the importance of this lesson of the parable of the talents is primarily about the kingdom of heaven. And I would like to think, Jesus didn't tell us this in this parable, but I would like to think that at some point when this one person who buried the talent and was thrown out into the street, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, we talked about this a few Sundays ago. This is one of Matthew's favorite sayings. He uses it all the time. Weeping and gnashing of teeth, meaning you're away from God and you're really sorry for whatever you did to be set aside from God like that. I would like to think that the folks who were given more trust, the folks who were given more access to the kingdom of heaven, went out to console that person in the street. That they went out to say, you know what, there's still a chance. There's still a chance for you. Because even though it fell on deaf ears for you this time, even though you wasted the opportunity to go into the kingdom of heaven and grow the message of God's love and mercy, just like Paul tells the people of Thessalonica, you've got this armor, this breastplate of love and salvation, or love and faith, that we would go console that person in the street and say, there's another chance. God's forgiveness is infinite. God's forgiveness is eternal. God's forgiveness is broader than we can imagine. And yet, as we think about this parable of the talents, we recognize that Jesus didn't use the example of figs or mustard seeds or sheep. He did use, in fact, money as his kind of currency for this story to give us importance on what it means for us to take care of whatever we have that God has given us. As we look across the congregation, I see people of all different ages. I see people of all different walks of life. I see people of all different financial means. Whatever we have been given by God. And whatever we have, we invest on behalf of God. You see, that's the key concept. Whether we're talking about the kingdom of heaven or all of God's creation, it all comes from him. And those of us who have more than others, those of us who have less than others, still have to realize whatever we have is part of God's creation, including the clothes on my back, this microphone that I'm using, and what you see around me here in my living room at Online Home Church. It's all God's. I'm going to be here for just a little bit of time on earth. And when I'm gone, all of this will still be here. It will all be someone else's if we take care of it. And as God is telling us, or Jesus is telling us in this parable today, to take the kingdom of heaven's message and to grow it, we also have to recognize that we have to take care of what God has given us in the first place. John Wesley, the great Anglican priest who then later started the Methodist movement, John Wesley gave a sermon on this, y'all, in 1750. Call it 250 years ago. In 1750, he was taking the parable of the talents and trying to figure out, well, what does this mean for my congregation sitting here basically in colonial America? and colonial America. He was in Savannah in the 1730s and 1740s. He may have been back in England by the time he gave the sermon. In any case, it was colonial times. So John Wesley says, you know what, I'm taking a look at the parable of the talents to trying to figure out what it means for us, not just in terms of the broadness of the kingdom of heaven, but what it means for us in specific financial terms. He came up with three ideas, three guides that I think are relevant even today, 250 years later. The first is earn all you can. God's given us this entire creation. The more that you earn, the more that you're able to take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of others. Because the second guide, earn all you can, save all you can, and be a good steward of the creation that comes your way. It's all God's. You're only going to be here a little bit of time on earth, maybe 110 years, maybe at the most. You got to do what you can to take care of what you have been given by God during that time. So you earn all you can, you save all you can. And then the third thing, especially at Thanksgiving, is to give all you can. You see, the broadness of God's mercy and the generosity that he shows us in this parable of the talents is one that we need to reflect as we try and treat others as we would be treated ourselves. When Jesus tells us that the second commandment is to love one another as I have loved you, and love one another as you love yourself, that means that if we do, in fact, earn all we can and save all we can, that we need to give all we can, to be as generous as possible in the way that we take care of our creation and that we take care of others. In fact, showing generosity to others with the creation that God has given us is a reflection of God's love for us in the first place. So, from John Wesley's ears in 1750 to yours, I hope that you'll take these three guides with you as we celebrate Thanksgiving this week. Earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. It's a great way to start the Thanksgiving message. I personally hope that someone will come to Thanksgiving in our table and enjoy the 10-pound turkey that Rebecca has gotten for us. Speaking of creation, we're going to take advantage of Tom Turkey this week and enjoy some feasting, and I hope that all of y'all do the same. But to remember that as we sit at the table and we ask for the Lord's blessing, to give thanks for even these most basic things as we celebrate Thanksgiving this year. Amen.
Amen, indeed.
And now,
Excellent.
thank you, Richard. And now with Christians around the world